Princess Lyra stood on the balcony of her palace, her eyes tracing the floating gardens below. The Zilari capital was a city of wonders, tall spires of shining metal, streets that glowed with soft light, and gardens that hovered in mid-air. Yet, despite the beauty, Lyra felt a tension in her chest. Something new was coming, something she had never faced before. The human ambassador, Commander Jaren, was arriving today. The council had arranged a political marriage proposal between him and Lyra. The thought made her uneasy. Humans were strange to her people, reckless, emotional, and fragile. Stories of human mistakes and failures had been told over generations. Marrying one could bring disaster both for her and her planet. Her hand tightened on the balcony rail. "I must remain strong," she whispered to herself. "I am a princess of Zilari. I cannot show fear." Below, palace attendants hurried to prepare for the arrival. Lyra could hear the distant hum of Jaren's ship as it entered the atmosphere. Unlike the gilded ships of other ambassadors, his craft was plain and simple, yet sleek. It did not flaunt wealth or power. That simplicity made her skeptical. How could a human represent their people without pride or grandeur? When the ship landed, Lyra watched as a figure stepped out. Jaren's uniform was neat but unpretentious. He walked with confidence but not arrogance. His eyes scanned the palace calmly, observing, not judging. Lyra's first impression was cautious. She had seen diplomats before, and most were full of false charm. Jaren seemed different, but different did not always mean good. The council chamber was prepared for their first meeting. Crystal walls reflected the morning light, and intricate patterns of alien symbols glowed softly across the floor. Lyra entered, her flowing gown brushing the ground. She felt every eye in the room watch her, waiting for her reaction to the human. Jaren stood as she approached. He bowed respectfully, not too low, not too formal. It was a human bow, simple and direct. "Princess Lyra," he said. His voice was calm, steady, without pretense. "I am honored to meet you." Lyra studied him carefully. He was not flashy. He did not try to impress with words or gifts. That annoyed her a little. She expected charm, politeness, and grandeur. Instead, she found honesty and calmness. "I have heard much about humans," she said, choosing her words carefully. "And most of it is concerning." Jaren nodded as if he expected it. "I know humans can be different from your people, but I hope to show that we can be allies, and perhaps more." Lyra raised an eyebrow. "More?" she asked, her voice sharp. He did not hesitate. "Yes. Our peoples have much to gain from cooperation, and I hope we can build trust personally." Trust. A strange word for Lyra. Could she trust a human? Could she even like one? Her doubts pressed on her like a heavy weight, but she needed to see more before making judgment. Over the next days, Lyra observed Jaren. He did not demand attention. He listened when she spoke, asking questions about her people, her culture, her duties. He learned quickly, showing respect for the Zilari ways without pretending to understand them all at once. The palace staff was skeptical. Some whispered that a human could never match a Zilari in intelligence or skill. Others laughed at the idea that a human could handle the responsibilities of being a prince by her side. But Jaren did not seem affected by their doubts. He continued his work quietly, solving small problems with practical solutions, often helping where others struggled. One morning, Lyra found him in the palace gardens. A rare plant known for its delicate nature was wilting. The royal gardeners had tried everything, but it was failing. Lyra watched as Jaren knelt beside it. With careful hands, he examined the soil and leaves, muttering quietly in his own language. After a few moments, he adjusted the soil, added water, and repositioned the plant for better sunlight. To Lyra's surprise, the plant began to recover slowly. Its leaves lifted, color returning. "You see?" he said softly. "Sometimes the simplest approach works best." Lyra stared at him, caught off guard. She had expected human carelessness, impatience, or mistakes. Instead, she saw thoughtfulness and patience. She could not hide her curiosity. "Perhaps humans are not as reckless as I thought," she admitted quietly. Jaren looked at her with a small smile. "We are different, yes, but sometimes different is a strength." Lyra turned away, feeling a strange warmth in her chest. She did not fully trust him yet, but the seeds of curiosity had been planted. Perhaps humans were not only capable of mistakes, they could also surprise with kindness, intelligence, and courage. As the sun set over the floating gardens, Lyra remained on her balcony, deep in thought. The human ambassador was no longer just a stranger. He was someone who could challenge her assumptions, someone who might change the way she saw the galaxy, and herself. The first meeting had ended, but the journey had only just begun. Lyra realized that her fears were only the beginning of the story, and somehow she felt that this human, quiet and steady, could become much more than just an ambassador in her life. For the first time, she wondered what it might feel like to trust him, and to see if his kindness could truly melt the doubts she had carried all her life. The next morning, Princess Lyra awoke to the soft hum of the palace. She knew today would be different. Today she would spend time with Commander Jaren, as part of the premarital diplomacy tradition. It was not meant to be romantic. It was meant to test their compatibility, teach understanding, and show whether a human could truly adapt to Zalari life. Lyra walked through the palace halls, her steps echoing on the polished floor. She found Jaren waiting in the training arena, a large space used for both combat exercises and problem-solving challenges. He stood quietly, observing the room with calm eyes, as if it were not strange at all. "Good morning, Princess," he said, bowing slightly. "I hope I am not late." Lyra narrowed her eyes. "Being on time is expected, Commander. You will learn that quickly." Jaren smiled faintly, unbothered by her tone. "I will try my best." Their first trial was simple yet symbolic. A small mechanical device had malfunctioned in the arena. The device controlled the flow of water to the palace gardens. If it did not work, some of the plants could die. Lyra had already seen humans struggle with technology, and she suspected Jaren would be no different. "Fix it," she said, her tone sharp. If a human cannot manage a device, how can he manage more important matters? Jaren knelt beside the machine, examining its wires, sensors, and circuits. He worked methodically, occasionally asking Lyra questions. "Does this device react to pressure changes in the pipes?" he asked. Lyra blinked. "Yes, and most humans would not understand that." "I am not most humans," Jaren replied, simply. Minutes passed. Lyra's arms folded across her chest as she watched him. Slowly, carefully, he adjusted the wiring, recalibrated the sensors, and replaced a small but crucial component. The device whirred to life, water flowing evenly. "To the gardens," Lyra raised an eyebrow. "You succeeded." Jaren looked at her, calm and patient. Sometimes understanding the system is better than forcing it. For the first time, Lyra felt a flicker of respect. Humans were not as careless as she had believed. Their methods were different, yes, but effective. The next challenge came in the gardens. Lyra led Jaren to a patch of delicate flowers, glowing softly under the palace lights. They were rare, fragile, and difficult to maintain. Lyra expected him to fail. Many. Zalari doubted that a human's hands could handle such plants without damaging them. "Water them carefully," Lyra instructed. "One wrong move and they will die." Jaren knelt among the flowers, observing each one. He did not rush. He touched the leaves gently, tested the soil's moisture, and moved the flowers slightly to catch more light. Within an hour, the flowers looked healthier, their colors more vibrant than before. Lyra could not hide her surprise. "You did well," she admitted. He shrugged, a small smile playing on his lips. "It is not about doing well. It is about paying attention. Humans may be different, but we can care." Their final trial of the day was a social one. Lyra invited some young Zalari nobles to the palace for a casual gathering. The nobles were polite, but many looked at Jaren with curiosity and suspicion. He was human after all, and not used to Zalari customs. Jaren greeted each noble with respect, listening carefully as they spoke. He did not pretend to understand everything, but he asked thoughtful questions. His patience and genuine interest impressed some nobles and annoyed others who expected arrogance or flattery. One noble tried to trick him, asking a complicated question about Zalari law. Most humans would have faltered or lied. Jaren, however, admitted he did not know and asked politely for clarification. The noble, expecting embarrassment, was surprised. Instead of mockery, Jaren's honesty inspired respect. Lyra watched silently. Her doubts were slowly fading. This human was not perfect, but his imperfections were not weaknesses. They were signs of empathy, courage, and thoughtfulness. After the gathering, Lyra walked with Jaren through the palace corridors. The sun was setting, casting a golden glow across the city. "You handled today well," she said quietly. "I did not expect a human to perform so competently." Jaren smiled. "Thank you, Princess. I know I am different, but I hope that difference can be valuable." Lyra nodded slowly. "Perhaps it can, but do not think this means I trust you fully yet." "I do not expect that," he replied honestly. "Trust must be earned, and I am ready to earn it." For the first time, Lyra felt a spa. The day began quietly, with the soft hum of the palace machinery and the golden light of dawn spilling across the floating gardens. Princess Lyra did not expect anything unusual. Yet, the message that arrived that morning changed everything. A nearby Zalari settlement had been struck by a violent storm. Homes were damaged and some villagers were trapped. Lyra frowned, feeling a knot of worry in her stomach. The Zalari had advanced technology, but the disaster required immediate action. The council decided that Lyra and Commander Jaren should go to the settlement to assess the damage and provide aid. It was an unusual assignment, but perhaps one that would reveal true character. They boarded a sleek transport ship, rising above the palace spires and heading toward the affected village. Lyra sat beside Jaren, her hands folded in her lap. She watched him as he prepared the necessary equipment, noting how carefully he packed medical supplies, tools, and food. Unlike many humans she had heard about, Jaren seemed calm, prepared, and observant. Upon arrival, the scene was worse than expected. Homes were flattened, crops destroyed, and villagers huddled together, frightened and uncertain. Lyra felt a pang of responsibility. She had grown up in safety and privilege, and now she saw the real cost of disasters on ordinary lives. Jaren stepped forward, assessing the situation quickly. "We need to prioritize the injured and unstable structures," he said calmly. "Lyra, I will handle the triage. You coordinate the villagers and make sure everyone is safe." Lyra blinked. His tone was not bossy, yet he commanded attention. She nodded, feeling an unfamiliar sense of admiration. They split into teams. Lyra guided villagers to safer areas, while Jaren worked with the injured, lifting heavy debris and administering care. Despite his smaller human build, his strength, focus, and endurance were remarkable. Villagers who had been skeptical of humans watched in awe as he lifted debris, encouraged the injured, and soothed frightened children. Hours passed. Sweat dripped from Lyra's brow as she worked tirelessly, yet Jaren seemed tireless. His human hands, she realized, could handle delicate care and heavy labor alike. He treated everyone equally, regardless of status or rank, earning the respect of villagers who had once doubted him. At one point, a building threatened to collapse. Jaren shouted a warning and pushed a child out of harm's way. The roof caved, moments later narrowly missing them both. Lyra's heart raced, and for a moment she felt fear, not for herself, but for him. "You are reckless," she exclaimed after the danger passed. "I am careful when it matters," he replied, brushing dust from his uniform. "Sometimes action is necessary." Lyra watched him silently, realizing that his recklessness was not foolishness. It was courage, tempered by intelligence and empathy. Humans, she began to understand, were not fragile. They were strong, in ways the Zolari could not always measure. By evening, the villagers were safe. Temporary shelters were erected, food and water distributed, and injured villagers treated. Lyra looked around, seeing the hope returning to their faces. She glanced at Jaren, who was helping an elderly woman with a collapsed roof beam. His calm determination and human ingenuity had saved lives. "Why do you help so easily?" Lyra asked quietly as they walked back to their transport. Many humans would have left such work to others. Jaren looked at her, his eyes steady. "Because it is the right thing to do. Strength is not just in power, it is in care, in action, and in making a difference when you can." Lyra felt a warmth spread through her chest. For the first time, she truly saw the human way of thinking, not reckless, not weak, but different. They were capable of courage, creativity, and compassion. Perhaps that was why humans survived, thrived, and expanded across the stars despite their flaws. Back at the palace, Lyra found herself thinking about the day's events long after Jaren had gone to his quarters. She reflected on his patience with the villagers, his willingness to risk himself for others, and his quiet confidence. Her fear of humans had not disappeared entirely, but it had shifted. Humans were not merely unpredictable, they were extraordinary in their own way. That night, Lyra walked the palace gardens alone, staring at the floating lights that reflected the stars above. She thought about the stories she had grown up with, the tales of humans being emotional, fragile, and reckless. She realized that her fear had been based on prejudice, not truth. A soft voice broke her thoughts. "Lyra." She turned to see Jaren standing nearby, holding a small bouquet of native flowers he had picked. "I thought you might like these," he said simply. Lyra accepted the flowers, her fingers brushing his. It was a small gesture, yet it carried meaning. Humans did not need grand displays to show care. They acted through simple, thoughtful deeds. "You have changed my view," she admitted quietly. "I still do not fully trust humans, but you have shown me a side I never imagined." Jaren smiled. "Trust is built, Princess. I do not expect it all at once." Lyra studied him, feeling something she had not felt before, a mix of curiosity, respect, and a hint of admiration. She realized that the human before her was not just an ambassador. He was a teacher in his own way, showing her that strength, kindness, and courage could exist in forms she had never considered. As she watched him leave the garden, Lyra thought about the journey ahead. There would be more tests, more challenges, and more lessons. But for the first time, she felt a small spark of hope. Perhaps this human could truly become more than an ally. Perhaps he could change her understanding of the galaxy itself. And, for the first time in her life, Lyra wondered if her heart, long guarded by fear and doubt, might open to the possibility of trust, and even something more. The palace was unusually quiet that morning. Princess Lyra walked through the corridors, her mind heavy with thought. Commander Jaren had proven himself capable, compassionate, and clever. Yet not everyone in the Zolari court was pleased with his presence. Whispers of doubt and suspicion followed them wherever they went. Some council members openly opposed the union. They feared that a human could never understand the responsibilities of a Zolari princess. Others quietly plotted, hoping to find reasons to discredit him. Lyra had grown used to palace intrigue, but this was different. The stakes were higher. This time the target was not her crown, but her heart. She found Jaren in the training arena, reviewing reports from the recent disaster relief. His brow was furrowed in concentration, but when he saw her, his face softened. "Princess," he greeted. "I did not expect you so early." "I had to see you," Lyra replied. "There are matters we must discuss." Jaren set aside the reports and gave her his full attention. "Of course. What is troubling you?" Lyra hesitated. She had never admitted uncertainty so openly, not even to herself. "The council. Some of them do not believe in you." They spread rumors and try to undermine you, and I do not know if I can protect you from their schemes. Jaren stood and approached her. I do not need protection. I need honesty, trust, and a chance to prove myself. The rest will follow if we do our best. Lyra studied him. His words were simple, yet they carried confidence. Humans had a way of facing challenges directly, without hiding behind tradition or fear. She admired that. Yet she could not ignore the court's influence. The first challenge came during a ceremonial gathering. Nobles from across Zalari attended, their eyes sharp and curious. Jaren walked beside Lyra, his posture calm but alert. As they entered, a senior council member stepped forward. Princess Lyra, the counselor said, his tone sharp, we have concerns about your choice. A human cannot be your equal in wisdom or duty. Our planet deserves a leader who understands Zalari ways, not one who may falter in critical moments. Lyra's heart pounded, but she stood tall. This human has proven his abilities. He has acted with courage, intelligence, and care. If you doubt him, you doubt the values we should cherish: honor, courage, and compassion. Murmurs filled the hall. Some nobles nodded in agreement while others exchanged skeptical glances. The counselor frowned but did not respond further. Lyra felt a flicker of pride. She had spoken her truth even in the face of opposition. After the gathering, Lyra and Jaren walked through the palace gardens. The evening sky glowed with hues of orange and violet, reflecting off the floating lights. You handled that well, Jaren said. Not many would defend someone as openly in front of the council. Lyra exhaled slowly. I could not stand by and let them judge you unfairly. You have earned my respect, Commander. But respect alone is not enough. There are whispers and schemes. They will try again. Jaren nodded. Then we face them together. Your people are strong, Princess. So am I. We complement each other. The next challenge came in the form of a subtle attack on Jaren's reputation. Rumors spread that he had mismanaged the relief efforts at the village, that his human methods were reckless and dangerous. Some nobles tried to convince Lyra that the engagement would bring dishonor. Lyra confronted the council secretly, demanding evidence. She reviewed reports, talked to villagers, and observed Jaren's work herself. Every accusation crumbled under scrutiny. Jaren had acted efficiently, bravely, and with care. Yet, the council continued to whisper, unwilling to accept truth over prejudice. That night, Lyra found Jaren in the palace archives, studying the records of their recent efforts. He looked up as she entered. They question your every action, she said, her voice soft but firm. Do you feel discouraged? The Zalari Royal Archives were quiet that morning, filled with glowing holographic records and the soft hum of data streams. Princess Lyra and Commander Jaren stood side by side, examining reports of a diplomatic crisis. A neighboring alien empire had made territorial claims near Zalari borders, threatening trade routes and peaceful relations. The council was divided on how to respond. Lyra frowned at the reports. The council wants a traditional approach, she said. They suggest sending formal envoys, issuing statements, and waiting. But I fear this will only anger them further. Jaren leaned over, studying the data. Traditional methods may not solve this. They follow logic and rules. But sometimes, you must consider human elements, emotions, perceptions, and trust. Diplomacy is more than law. It is people. Lyra blinked. You think differently. But can humans truly understand alien politics? I do not claim to understand everything, Jaren replied. But humans see solutions where others see obstacles. We improvise, adapt, and care about consequences beyond protocol. Lyra studied him, realizing that she had come to trust his judgment. His calm reasoning, combined with his courage and empathy, had already changed her perspective on humans. They began working together, drafting proposals, planning missions, and considering strategies that combined Zalari intelligence with human ingenuity. Jaren suggested meeting the neighboring empire's leaders in person, not just sending formal envoys. Humans, he explained, were persuasive when they showed honesty and respect face to face. Lyra was skeptical, but agreed to try. Together they traveled to the border planet, accompanied by a small Zalari delegation. The neighboring empire's leaders were imposing, their ships larger and more advanced. They expected arrogance from outsiders and carefully watched every move. Jaren stepped forward first, calmly and respectfully greeting the alien leaders. He did not boast of Earth's technology or human power. Instead, he acknowledged their strengths and expressed a sincere desire for mutual benefit. Lyra watched him, amazed. Humans had a way of connecting through honesty and empathy, she realized. They were not restrained by pride or fear of status. Jaren listened more than he spoke, asked thoughtful questions and offered solutions that benefited both sides. Slowly, the leader's skepticism began to soften. During a discussion about trade disputes, one leader tried to corner Jaren with a complex question about Zalari laws. Many humans would have faltered, but Jaren stayed calm. He explained a solution, clearly and politely, showing respect for both Zalari and alien customs. The leader nodded, impressed by his composure. Lyra felt a swell of pride. The human she had feared and doubted was now showing qualities her people had long admired: courage, intelligence, patience, and fairness. She realized that humans were not only capable of leadership, they could inspire trust and respect across species. After hours of discussion, an agreement was reached. Trade routes were secured, territorial claims respected, and a new framework for cooperation established. The neighboring empire's leaders shook hands with Jaren and Lyra, acknowledging that their approach had brought peace where tension had once thrived. As they returned to Zalari space, Lyra turned to Jaren. "I see now. Humans bring more than strength or strategy. You bring perspective, empathy, and solutions that others cannot see." Jaren smiled, a small, humble expression. "We see the world differently, Princess. And sometimes, seeing differently is exactly what is needed." Back at the palace, the council convened to review the mission's success. Many Zalari leaders were astonished. A human had not only assisted a princess but had negotiated peace, showing insight and courage beyond expectation. Some nobles who had opposed the engagement whispered quietly, now forced to acknowledge his contributions. Lyra stood before the council, her voice firm and clear. "Commander Jaren has shown that humans are not only capable of understanding Zalari ways, they can improve them. He has earned the respect of our allies and the trust of our people. If we judge by actions, not prejudice, it is clear that humans are valuable partners." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Lyra felt satisfaction and relief. She had defended Jaren, and now the council could not deny his worth. Later she found Jaren in the palace gardens, standing beneath the soft glow of floating lights. He looked at her with quiet understanding. "You have done more than guide diplomacy," Lyra said softly. "You have shown my people what humans can offer, and you have shown me what trust and courage look like." Jaren shook his head. "I only did what any human would do. I act where I see need, I care where I see suffering, and I stand where others may hesitate. You, Princess, gave me the chance to show it." Lyra smiled, feeling warmth spread through her chest. Humans were not only strong or brave, they were capable of kindness, creativity, and leadership that transcended culture and species. And this human, standing quietly beside her, had done all of that and more. "You have changed my understanding of the galaxy," she admitted. "And perhaps changed my heart as well." Jaren's eyes met hers, steady and calm. "Then we have learned from each other, Princess. That is the greatest legacy anyone can leave." That night, Lyra reflected on the journey that had brought them here. From the first moment she had doubted humans, to the trials, challenges, and successes she had witnessed, her fear had transformed into admiration. The human she had once feared had proven himself not only worthy of trust but deserving of partnership, respect, and perhaps even love. As she looked out over the glowing city, she realized that their union would not just be a marriage, it would be a symbol of cooperation, understanding, and hope. Humans and Zelari together could achieve what neither could alone. And for the first time, Lyra felt certain that their future, whatever challenges it held, would be brighter because of the human beside her. The day of the wedding arrived with a sky painted in gold and violet. The Zelari capital shimmered with excitement, its floating gardens and gleaming towers reflecting the light. Citizens from across the planet and representatives from distant worlds had gathered to witness the union of Princess Lyra and Commander Jaren. The palace was alive with energy, yet Lyra felt calm. Today was not only about ceremony, it was the start of a new era. Lyra adjusted her flowing gown, its colors shimmering like the sunrise. She looked at Jaren, standing beside her in a simple yet elegant uniform. No human or Zelari could deny the contrast, yet in that contrast lay harmony. Jaren did not flaunt his rank or power. He stood quietly, steady, confident in his own way. The council members, many who had once opposed the engagement, watched silently. Some frowned, others whispered, but no one could deny the courage and integrity Jaren had shown. He had earned their respect through action, not words. As the ceremony began, Lyra and Jaren stepped forward together. The high priest recited the ancient Zelari vows, words that had been spoken for generations. Lyra's heart beat steadily. She remembered the doubts and fears that had once clouded her mind, and she realized how far she had come. When it came time for Jaren to speak, he did not recite alien customs he did not understand. Instead, he spoke from his heart. "I stand here not only as a human," he said, "but as someone who respects your people, your culture, and your future. I promise to honor you, protect what you value, and work together to build a legacy that unites our worlds." Lyra felt a warmth spread through her chest. These words, simple yet honest, carried more weight than the most elaborate rituals. She saw not only a human standing beside her, but a partner, a friend, and perhaps more. The ceremony continued, blending human simplicity with Zelari grandeur. Guests watched in awe as two cultures united, their differences highlighted yet harmonized. When the final vow was spoken, Lyra and Jaren clasped hands, a gesture that spoke of trust, courage, and mutual respect. Outside the palace, celebrations erupted. Citizens cheered and banners of both Zelari and human design fluttered in the wind. Lyra and Jaren walked among the crowds, greeting their people. Villagers from the settlement Jaren had helped during the storm approached, bowing respectfully and expressing gratitude. They whispered stories of his courage, kindness, and patience. Lyra listened, her eyes bright with pride. This human, once feared and doubted, had touched lives in ways she could never have imagined. He had not only earned the trust of her people, but had begun to reshape their understanding of humans entirely. Later, in the palace gardens, Lyra and Jaren stood together, watching the floating lights reflect the stars above. The city below seemed peaceful, almost serene. Yet both knew that challenges would come. Political pressures, cultural differences, and unforeseen threats would test them. But for the first time, they faced the future united, confident in their partnership. "You have changed the way my people see humans," Lyra said softly. "And you have changed the way I see the galaxy." Jaren smiled, taking her hand. "We have changed it together. Strength is not in one person or one culture. It is in cooperation, trust, and the willingness to act with heart and mind." Lyra nodded, feeling a sense of completion. Her journey had begun with fear and doubt, but it had transformed into trust, understanding, and admiration. Jaren had shown her that humans, though different, brought qualities that were unique, powerful, and enduring. In the weeks that followed, Lyra and Jaren worked to strengthen bonds between humans and Zelari. They implemented new,